Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pash On Podcast. Let's get started with your host, Brian Pash.
Hi, this is Brian Pash, and welcome to another podcast interview. On today's show, we're going to be talking with two marketing directors who've taken an innovative approach to consumer direct buying of used cars. With me today is Scott Weidman. He's the marketing director at the Keating Automotive Group, and Josh Detzel. He's the marketing director at C. Harper Automotive. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having
Brian.
us.
Good to be here.
You know, for context, this is one of these interviews I've been wanting to get on the air because so many dealers, in my opinion, just are taking the wrong approach to acquiring more local used cars to fill their lots at good prices, direct from consumers instead of the auction. And so today we want to talk about what that solution looks like and how it evolved. Scott, you and I were talking earlier about what people used to do in the past. And I'd like to have you share that. You know, before the Axle microsite strategy, before COVID, consumers didn't have a lot of choices on how to sell or dispose of a used car. How do you look back at what people used to do and what is clear that consumers want to do today?
Yeah, until recently, and I would say before COVID, but until relatively recently, you had three options. You could trade your vehicle in and get another one at a dealership. You could sell the vehicle yourself, which was a scary proposition. You know, I remember growing up, seeing them parked up at the grocery store or parked at a vacant lot around town with a for sale sign. Or you could pass it down to a relative. We see that a lot at Honda stores. But we found that, you know, the options online became a little bit scarier than parking it in the vacant lot and with a for sale sign, because maybe it was Facebook Marketplace, maybe it was eBay, maybe it was trying to find a place that you'd never done business with, like a CarMax or whatever, and getting an offer. So there were started to be some online options, but the sell it yourself was a scary proposition because you didn't know who you were interacting with. You didn't know who you were meeting. There were so many scams going on Facebook with other products besides just cars that was scary. Passing it down might not have been a financially beneficial thing anymore. And then, you know, with COVID, people just didn't need their cars no more. You know, my kids sing that jingle, you know, 1877 cars for kids. And I guess that was an option too, but, you know, to get rid of your car. But you know, there just wasn't anything that people necessarily knew because it wasn't being marketed real well of an option. And from a dealership perspective, because you're like, oh, well, I'm not just going to sell it to the car dealer. All I can do there is trade. I think that was a common perception. But we need to buy cars. And so we had to come up with a solution.
You know, Scott, you're absolutely right. There is this perception prior to CarMax and their national marketing that you only went to a car dealer if you were going to buy. You know, why? Honestly, I think a lot of consumers thought at one time, you know, why would they buy this car? You know, they're going to want to sell me something, or there was a fear factor that they may be pressured into buying something that they didn't want to. Josh, I want to ask you a slightly different question. When I opened up this interview, I said, I believe that most dealers have it wrong about their strategy to acquire cars. And I came up with this phrase, have an intentional car buying strategy. And intentional doesn't mean a banner on a VDP or an SRP that says, we'll buy your car in cash. That's accidental. But it also doesn't mean just putting KBB, ICO, or trade pending or some other tool on your website as if that is going to miraculously increase the number of cars that are traded directly to you just for sale from consumers. Josh, you were sharing with me that in the past, these trade leads, even though they were numerous, kind of got lost in the shuffle of other leads. It became a mess. What did you see before switching to a intentional used car acquisition strategy at the C. Harper Automotive Group?
Yeah, so I'll tell you, we tried to put KBB, we bought a buying center through KBB 3 or 4 years ago. We decided that, hey, we're going to spiff the salespeople and we're going to take these leads and put them in the same rotation, the round robin rotation as normal, digital retailing leads, request a quote leads. And what we found was, number one, salespeople weren't really interested, regardless of spiffing them on purchasing the vehicles. And number two, they got bogged down with the sheer volume of the amount of leads that they were getting. And so I had some of my senior guys that, they basically told us, hey, you know what? I just don't want any leads anymore. If we're going to get all of these, people we're trying to call these people and buy their cars. I want to sell cars. So we created a separate department with a separate strategy that's only really interested in purchasing cars. Now, yeah, we do some transactions where those customers do upgrade into other vehicles, but the main purpose is to acquire vehicles. And we didn't want to send customers to our group site or charper.com or charperchevy.com or any of my other branded sites and distract customers with other vehicles that are available or photos of our dealership or about us or anything else. We wanted to get that experience. Customers are coming here for one reason, that's to appraise their vehicle and see what they can get for it, right? We want to purchase their vehicle or upgrade them, and that's just a byproduct.
Well, for the dealers who are listening, I hope your interest has been elevated, because what we're talking about is not something else, as Josh said, to put on your OEM website or your group site. The Axle strategy is a dedicated microsite that's fast, efficient, not bloated with OEM code or tracking software from 12 different companies that you don't have any clue are part of OEM programs. This is a agile, fast loading site that has one purpose. And the key here, it's on a dedicated URL, like Sell Your Car Tomball or Sell Your Car Pittsburgh or Carvendi or the LaFontaine Buying Center. Whether the dealer decides to include their brand name or not, it is a URL that can be marketed on billboards, radio, television, video. It can be used as hang tags in the store. It is a memorable URL with a dedicated fast buying site. That's what we're talking about. And now let's talk about a little bit on the process. So Scott, what's the name of the URL for your group?
SellYourCarTomball.com.
And because you have Tom, from people don't know Texas because it's its own country. Tomball, you have 2 stores in Tomball right now?
We do. We're going to add a third this summer, and it is in Northwest Houston. 10 miles in any direction, you're going to cover, 2.5, 3 million people.
So Sell Your Car Tomball, memorable URL, customized and skinned to the way that you want it. That's the nice thing about the Axle platform. It's fully customizable. And what is your process? Well, without maybe giving away the secret sauce, this website, I think the national average on the Axle sites are somewhere between 50 and 60% conversion rate. So the people that go there complete that process, they identify, they get a quote in seconds. What's your process then to engage them, to get them in for a physical appraisal and eventually buying their car? What does it generally look like?
Well, I think Josh nailed it from the beginning. Of course, we've gotten to guinea pig this over the last several months. And what Josh nailed is you cannot make it part of your normal OEM CRM process. You can't just make it a quote unquote an internet lead. And so it has to have different templates that go out in the response than even what a trade lead would be off your normal website. It has to have a different person picking up the phone to make that call, because everybody we have in our dealerships that call people are trying to sell a car. And this needs to be somebody whose main focus is buying a car. It may also be to get an appointment to see the car. But in this case, you've got, sight unseen appraisals are not uncommon. They're probably actually the standard. And so you really need somebody that's going to be able to quickly get to discussing the car, discussing what the process is with the customer on purchasing. I think we have found that our customers want to know how they get paid. And so that's something that has to be addressed pretty early, which is not something we train our normal sales staff to talk about until the end of the process. So I won't say it's a complete reverse, but I will say through trial and error that it is important to establish its own process and that it be unique with the idea of buying that vehicle and how important all those different things are to the customer as you build the process.
Josh, I want to ask you the same question. Let me, and then if you would, approximately how many cars a month right now are you pacing at? And what does the process look like? Because I know your website, Sell Your Car Pittsburgh, you've been doing marketing, you've been, again, trial and error, trying to figure out what the best process is. So what's your throughput currently? And what does it look like when somebody does get their trade quote from the Axle Buying Center? Because obviously their proprietary trade software is the fastest and most flexible in the marketplace. So we know that the consumer doesn't have to jump through hoops to get a great quote, but what do you do and how is that working?
I'll tell you, Brian, we're doing about 30 to 40 transactions per month. That's including upgrades. On just the acquisitions of purchasing customers' vehicles from them. Our average gross profit is about $2,400 per month. So it's very profitable for us. And then there's actually higher gross profits, like in July on some of the ones that we upgraded. I mean, the average gross profit was up north of $8,000, right? Gross profit. That's not including packs that we're putting on, so that goes straight to the bottom line. We started this process. So we're doing, just to answer your question, we're doing about 30 to 40 per month. We started this process, and I'll steal a line from my buddy Carlito from LaFontaine, is we cleaned the house before we invited the guests over, right? So before we even launched a website, we just wanted to figure out, can we even make this work, right? Before investing a ton of money into it. So we had a person and we trained them. I trained them on how to use the CRM and how the workflows work. I showed them how to use the click-to-calls, and I got them with the titling and finance departments to say, how do we do title paperwork, right? How do you become a BDC and a used car appraiser and a finance manager all in one, right? This hybrid role. And we created a one-stop shop. And we were doing about 10 to 12 without really any advertising, just pulling customers off of Facebook Marketplace. And our message to these customers off Facebook Marketplace is we can make it simple, fair, and safe. Right, because
love that.
You're not meeting somebody in a shady Walmart parking lot at 8 o'clock at night off of Facebook Marketplace. You're coming to a place where we have a established brand in the community. We have everything's under surveillance. You're in and out in under 60 minutes with a check in your hand. So we've created this streamlined process where I have one person. It's kind of cradle to the grave, right? The person that calls you on your vehicle, first of all, you get that when you submit that, they submit that appraisal, they get a range, right? Hey, Brian, looks like your vehicle is worth anywhere between $10,000 and $12,000. how'd you feel about that range? And if they say, hey, I thought it was good, or I thought it was bad, I think if it's bad, the objection, the way that we overcome that objection is, hey, sometimes the software misses some things. In order to give you a real 100% cash offer, we got to get a final inspection. I can either come to you or you can bring it to us. Which do you prefer?
Love it. Love it. And I love the fact that you mentioned Carlito. The Axle platform is the fastest growing solution across the largest auto groups and single point stores in the country. The Hudson Automotive Group has been a long time proponent of Axle, and their platform URL is called Carvendi. Obviously, the Weiler Automotive Group in the Cincinnati area, LaFontaine, you mentioned, and more of the larger dealer groups have come to the same conclusion that, hey, why would we let Carvana be the only one who's providing a safe, secure, fast, and efficient way to enable consumers to sell a car? And I'm glad you brought up safety, Scott. You alluded to that about the problems with Facebook and eBay. I love the fact, Josh, you mentioned come in, get your check within the hour. Scott, you mentioned that one of the top priorities is, hey, how long is it going to take to get paid? I think, hey, bring your car and 5 days later you'll get a check probably isn't cutting it. What's the process over at Keating? And can you talk a little bit more about what consumers' expectations are when they want to sell a car?
Well, it's the number one message on the website. Get cash for your car. I mean, it's the means to the end is probably the more important thing to the consumer. Obviously, if they're willing to part with the vehicle, they're trying to turn it into to money, especially if they're not looking for another vehicle, which we do find, like Josh indicated, that some of those people are looking to upgrade still, and that's just how they found us. But I would say that the safety is important. Coming to a lighted facility as compared to a meeting under the bridge or whatever is a better solution for the customer. We also address several frequently asked questions on the website that indicate where everything will take place. And then the process, if a customer has a payoff, you're still going to have to roll through that, but it's a lot easier and faster to do payoffs nowadays than it was 5 years ago. There is TitleWorks software that makes things a whole lot easier. We've got the ability to check titles a lot faster and a lot more accurately than we used to. So it's really become, almost as easier for the consumer to go through that process as it used to be for a dealer. I don't know that dealers were the ones that made it hard. I think that whether it was trying to turn a flood title across the state line and different things like that, but they've got systems in place to check all that stuff. And it's great for the dealer. It's great for the consumer. And so it makes that transaction much, much quicker than it used to be. So yes, they can walk out with a check that day, especially if they have the title, which many of them do. And if they still owe something, but they've got equity, which we find in a few situations, then we can still make an arrangement with that customer if everything lines up, with the software.
I'm so glad that both of you were willing to share your success, because I've been writing about the Axle platform and the TradeView software that enables these very accurate velocity presentations of the value of the vehicle. And Josh, I want to ask you a question on that. Some people have relied on this kind of conversation like, hey, Kelley Blue Book is the name that everyone knows. And I've always said maybe back in the day, but my son, who's 26, probably doesn't know the difference between a trade software enabler. They're just concerned about what the value is and doesn't align with them. Can you tell me a little bit about your decision that the Axle platform powered by TradeView was absolutely fine for the use case that we're trying to establish as a intentional used car buying strategy?
So if I'm understanding your question correctly, Brian, I'll tell you that the biggest difference between the leads that we get through Sell Your Car Pittsburgh and KBB, there's a couple of them. Number one, we have a lot more control over where these opportunities are coming from, right? They're not all spread out. We can really dial in into a certain radius, and it's not a perfect science, but the concentration of where we're getting them from in Pittsburgh. If anybody's ever been to Pittsburgh, we have a bunch of bridges, right? We have a bunch of rivers, and people just will not come from the North Hills down to where we are. So I have no interest in getting leads north of the city. So with KBB, we're getting them all from all over the place. And a lot of times what my agents will hear is that they're not interested in coming to our area. So number one, it's the control over where the opportunities are coming from and really allocating our budgets to specific areas. And number two, the quality and the closing rates of the TradeView leads or the Axle leads that we get are much higher quality. Number one, because of where they're coming from, and number two, it's that range, right? They're getting a range. Hey, it's between 10 and 12 instead of here's the number. Because as soon as customers see that one specific number, that's what they're getting, right? Regardless of if they put in a 2012 at perfect condition with brand new tires, right? They're all excellent
right.
Condition.
And Josh, here's what I was trying to say is that some dealers say, well, consumers will only trust KBB, as an example, because it's a brand. And my thought was, TradeView is the highest converting trade tool that I've ever tested. I like the visual presentation of the range. Do you think who provides the range, meaning a KBB or a Trade Pending or a TradeView by eDrive Auto, does it really make a difference? Is it more about the experience, the process? I'm not loading you. I'm just asking because any dealer would love to be getting another 40 cars in at a great price every month. But we're taking what I would say a novel approach to it.
Yeah, I don't think the younger demographics really know like what KBB is. Like if you ask my wife, like she has no clue, right? She's only 32, 33 years old. So I don't think it matters what the branding is on the trade tool, at least to the younger demographics. Now I know, back in the day, Auto Trader used to send out the magazines and those are more those brands are more recognizable to the older demographic, but I don't think anymore, especially, guys, millennials my age and younger. I really don't think it matters what value, what the brand is on the value appraising tool or the trade appraisal tool is to the consumer. I don't think that makes a difference.
Scott, same question.
Yeah, I wanted to speak to it because there's a couple main differences to me. TradeView to me is one of the absolute easiest consumer-facing tools to use. You can use your license plate. Nobody knows their VIN.
Amen.
You're scrambling to find your insurance card, which might be on your phone, and then you got to log in, and or you got to go physically out to the car, which when you're sitting on your couch and you're got your phone in your hand, you're not going to do that. So the license plate lookup and feature makes things extremely easy. And then it's not a ton of questions. I don't know that most people have ever all made it all the way to the end of a KBB trade inquiry.
Well, that's why the conversion rate is less than half of the Axle platform with powered by TradeView. So
yeah, we've tracked the fall off on. We just actually installed an AI tool on one of our websites, and one of their features was to kind of take over the trade CTA and the chat CTA. And I said, well, that's all awesome, but what's your fall off rate? What is your form completion rate on your your trade? And they're like, well, it's pretty low, but isn't that standard? And I'm like, no, it's not. It's just unique because you've got that KBP tool. But not to trash KBP. The other issue there is just the fact that, you know, like Josh, like myself, we signed up for these buying centers, but you know, whoever the rep was also visiting all my competitors on the same day or the same week, and they had a pretty good closing ratio on getting those buying centers. And so next thing you know, a customer that's right in my backyard or in Josh's backyard submits a KBB lead, and you know, there may be 2, 3 dealers that get that opportunity to talk to them. It may be 10 or 15, especially in a metro like where we're at, because they've sold that buying center to so many different dealerships in that area. Whereas with the TradeView product, with the microsite product, with the Axle product, we're unique. We're the only person going to call you on that one.
That's right.
And
It's just us.
Yeah. And so let me try to package this great information. When you decide to have an intentional used car acquisition strategy, you get your dedicated microsite on a URL that you own, number one. Number two, you get to skin it the way you want it. It has built-in chat and communication. It's the fastest, highest converting trade tool. The software, the trade piece is called TradeView, and Axle is the platform that is powering this unique user experience. You also can have an exclusive market area with the Axle platform if you choose to, and the cost is extremely reasonable. So having a dedicated site where no other dealers are getting your leads, where you can, as Josh mentioned, through Facebook, Google, OTT, direct mail, hang tag, you're driving traffic from the markets, from the zip codes that you want. And the end result is, if you want to have an intentional strategy, you train process, you control the process. And Josh, you mentioned profitability. At the end of the day, dealers are interested in the ROI. Now, as I've talked to Derek White, the CEO of eDrive Auto, the creator of the Axle platform, he has told me that the ROI could range from 7x to 12x. What do you say to a dealer who's on the fence, but is interested in the fact that Scott brought up exclusivity, their own leads? You brought up control the market. You mentioned some numbers. How are you explaining to the management team the ROI of the Axle platform?
Well, we have we're taking the cost of the buying center and we're expensing that across all the rooftops. We're buying 30 to 40 cars per month, and the way that I explain it to them is, let's take a table and let's look at all the gross profits of all the vehicles that you've purchased, either off the street, which isn't really that many, or at the auctions, and compare those to the average gross profits of the vehicles that we're purchasing through the buying center. We're doubling the gross profits. And the thing is we have control over the vehicles that we're buying, right? If my buying center buys these vehicles, we can control whether they're gonna stay with our stores or if they're going to be wholesale units. And quite honestly, Brian, if I buy 100 cars and 80 of them are wholesale, I'm cool with that, because that's just profitability going straight to the bottom line. So this isn't necessarily something that I had to sell to our sales managers. I had to sell this to our executive team and say, we're not here we're car dealers. We're not really here to sell cars. We're here to make money. Right. So even if I'm selling cars at an auction and we're turning cash and we're making money, that's what we're here to do.
Mm-hmm. Good. Scott, same thing. Keating Auto Group in Texas, now north of 25 stores. Do you see putting more than one buying center in different markets? What's your strategy? Because you do have a growing geography of markets to serve within Texas.
Yeah, we just bought our 29th store on Monday. We're actually going to open at least one more in 2024, which will put us at 30. But I do see that we'll probably end up having another buying center in different markets. We've got the one in Houston right now, which will service 3 stores. We may open that up to add a couple stores that are close to it. And then we also have some other markets where we have a pretty good concentration of 4, 5, or 6 stores within less than 10 miles of each other. So it will give us the opportunity to service multiple markets. And to Josh's point, I do not believe that this is a 100% retail product. You are going to get a vast opportunity to get some vehicles that you can wholesale, and some of them are going to be in worse condition than what you trade for. Some of them are going to be better condition than what you normally trade for. But it is, you don't have to pay as many people off those wholesale products. And so, whether it's multiple markets or whether it is just being open to the idea of doing some of those wholesale transactions, there is opportunity to make gross. And so, yes, it is something that we want to continue to pursue.
Great. And I want to just let dealers know that if you want more information, you can go to edriveauto.com/Axle. That's AXLE. So just the letter E, Drive Auto, no spaces, .com/Axle. A couple things you should know. The Axle Buying Center is personally customized to your brand. You could include your dealership name, or like both of these gentlemen decide to do geography and just expand their opportunities, even from an organic SEO standpoint. The websites are fully supported of the GA4 ASC specification. They're SEO rich, and you can add more and more content, especially building out successful buying center strategy, testimonials, and best of all, that the software that is powering the trade is, from our testing, the fastest, most highest productive trade valuation tool on the market. That's TradeView, which means if you see how exciting it is to see 50-60% completion conversion on the Axle Buying Center, then why not put TradeView on your website and increase those opportunities as well? So it's a separate strategy, but it could be a unified strategy to increase the satisfaction and the opportunities to engage consumers who want to sell their car or trade in. And as Josh mentioned, obviously the home run is when they come in to sell their car and then you're able to upgrade them to another vehicle. The grosses are much higher. Gentlemen, I know you guys are busy. Thank you for being on today's show. I'm excited that you've decided to do something different, differentiate your brand, creating new sales process. And well, the great news is that there's always ways to reinvent automotive retail, and today's interview is one of those opportunities to challenge everyone to think differently. Before we close, I'm going to ask both of our guests one question. Scott, if a dealer's on the fence about building a microsite and moving from what I would call an accidental trade strategy to intentional, what's one word of encouragement you would make?
I would say Derek and the team at eDrive make things very, very easy for startup. The onboarding is much more simple than what it sounds like building a website and getting this stuff. I would say the biggest focus needs to be on process, identifying where you can find that unique process, identifying the people to run that process, and not trying to make it part of your quote unquote normal normal retail process. It does need to be separate, but it can work. It really can. and you can get some looks at some vehicles, some conversations with customers that you would have not had you not gone this route.
Great. Josh, same question.
Yeah, Scott said it pretty beautifully right there. Right? He took the words right out of my mouth. Derek and his team in the eDrive Auto and the Trade Pending, or I'm sorry, the Trade View tool and the website, that's the easy part. The hardest part of this is the internal process, right? How do you create a separate department with a written process, step by step, call guides, workflows, its own e-lead shell or whatever shell you have in your CRM. These can't go into, the shuffle with all of your other opportunities. It has to be deliberate and independent from all other operations. That includes BDC, salesperson, appraiser, and finance manager, right? If that's all one person or multiple people, they cannot be answering to another sales manager or used car manager. They have to be their own thing. That's the hardest part of this. And that's why we cleaned the house before we invited the guests, right? That's why we did all the internal stuff and tried to break it a couple times for a couple months before we even launched a website. And launching the website with Derek has been the easiest part of this.
Great. Well, let's just say that information isn't what separates great operators. It's the process and the vision to execute on that information. And so we've presented today the Axle buying center strategy. The information's there. Now it's up to you, the dealer, to take action. So you can go to edriveauto.com and /Axle, or just go to edriveauto.com and get a demo scheduled. I want to thank everyone for listening today on your drive to work or in your home. And just keep in mind that we have interviews with dozens of automotive leaders, entrepreneurs, operators to help elevate the customer experience and help dealers thrive. So just search for the Brian Pash podcast on your favorite podcast viewing channel. And don't forget, in just a few days, the Modern Retailing Conference is coming up in beautiful Palm Beach, Florida. That's November 12th, 13th, and 14th. Dealers, if you haven't booked your ticket, get out to modernretailingconference.com. Get your tickets. Only dealer tickets are left. We're about to be sold out, so don't miss this great event that we host each year. And we'll catch you again on another podcast interview. So have a great day and be innovative.